heads down, keep your heads down.
Pipe down, I'm on the radio!
The We Have Ways Festival Special Series, here on History of Jackson.
So hello and welcome to the History of Jackson podcast here at We Have Ways Fest, and today we are joined by Mike Beddoes. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
No, that's right. So this weekend you're giving a talk with Stuart Bertie and Joe McCarthy about how we bring World War II history to the masses. Which project are you working on where you're doing this?
So I work on the YouTube channel WW2 Headquarters, which is Al Murray and James Holland's YouTube channel. They walk the grounds, they go to museums, they look at the machines, they look at the stories, they bring them to life by being in places. So you've got Normandy, Arnhem, they ride on a tank over the Nijmegen Road Bridge.
Which is very cool.
Very, very cool. So I'm here to, like you said, I'm on this panel with the amazing Joe McCarthy, who obviously was the original producer on We Have Ways of Making You Talk, the hugely successful World War II podcast with Al Murray and James Holland. And the reason we're all here, because this festival kind of spun out from the podcast. And Stuart Bertie, who's an incredible photographer, works a lot with James Holland and takes photos of some sort of amazing World War II locations, like his Normandy stuff. Where he puts his friend Mike in a US Army uniform and gets him to run across Omaha Beach, and then got it in sort of slow-mo, so there's a blur, is absolutely wonderful. And so putting the three of us on a panel, we're here to talk about how our sort of mediums, they don't compete with each other, they complement each other. And actually, if you look at the videos we do, if you look at the stills and really labour over them, and Stuart also does airborne photography, so you get that kind of aerial view, and then listen to the real stories of the people through the podcast, you get sort of a more sort of a whole approach to a battle or an engagement or even a person's story from World War II. The only thing you can add as a fourth thing is going there yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea of the talk. It's called Talking the Ground because originally one of our series was called Walking the Ground. And yeah, it's about how we all work together to bring those stories to life.
And what is it about World War II that makes it easier to, in a way, to have all different three mediums working together to draw in an audience?
That's a really good question. I think it's to do with the fact that we're... Well, firstly, I've always thought that World War II stories, they have this wide audience and they engage. If you look at how many TV, films, movies, YouTube channels, podcasts have spoken about it, and the books. I mean, how many books every year? And that is because I think it's, not only is it global war, so it involves nearly everybody, but it's basically an ideological war, right? So it's good versus evil. It's why that I've always thought, it's why when they're looking for a villain for Indiana Jones, it's the Nazis. It is good versus evil, and anybody from any walk of life could have been called into the action. Every person has a part to play. So I think it actually goes through the ages thinking it's not a war over religion or land or oil or anything like that. It's actually a battle over, we need to stop this sort of spreading across Europe and the world as a sort of, an evil. And that's, I think that fascinates us because it's seldom been repeated. It hasn't been repeated really since. In terms of telling our stories, it's very visual, and because they're normal people who are being conscripted into the armed forces, you end up with a person who could have been a school teacher, winning a award or saving lives, learning to drive a tank, flying Spitfires. You've got all of this stuff, and I think that really grounds the storytelling. And also the places. If anyone's been to Normandy, you walk Omaha Beach and it's 5 miles long. Until you're actually there, you've seen it in Saving Private Ryan, for example. You don't quite comprehend quite how long, quite how wide. And also, weirdly, for a place that was shelled and there would have been explosions and the fog of war hanging in the air, it's so beautiful and calm now. So I think when we're there making videos, for example, bringing to life how it's a stunning place, but you're also then doing here and now photos to bring to life what it was like, and it's this really weird disconnect. But also at the same time, I'm going to completely undermine that point. If you're stood on a cliff top at Long-sur-Mer, you can imagine those guns being shelled on the morning of D-Day by, the sea is black with ships. So you can kind of do it yourself. You stand there in a moment of calm, and our videos aim to have Alan and James describe that action, describe people's, not heroics, but what they're doing in the moment, and sort of grounding it, whereas Stu Bertie's photos allow you to stop for a minute and really sort of look at the detail, absorb the storytelling through a still. And then obviously We Have Ways of Making You Talk it's very personable.
Yep.
I got into that podcast before I worked with James and Al because it is bringing to life the units and the divisions and the battles and the big war, but also the very, very personal nature of it.
And I think that's something that always strikes me is you can relate to elements of this war because the people aren't too different from you. They're not career soldiers. They're not, people who have just been in the military, trained since they were 5. It is something that's completely different. So how do you choose some of these places and stories? Because you've gone to Arnhem, you've done Market Garden, you've gone to D-Day. How do you choose which elements you want to discuss?
Well, the first one was Normandy, just because
You can't
D-Day,
not. Yeah.
you can't not. And anyone who went through the British school system, we've always had this sort of joke that if you go through the British school system and you've got World War II on the syllabus, World War II is Hitler invades Poland, the Blitz, Battle of Britain,
Yep.
D-Day, Berlin falls. And there's lots of gaps to fill in. But we thought we would start in one that everybody knows, but go into the details. And I think we went out there, we were only there for 4 days, and we just kept filming. And we ended up coming back with like 22 videos in the first season of Normandy, covering everything from the landing beaches, the gun placements at Longsimere. We go into where Jim Gavin lands with the 82nd at the Murder A. So we go into both British and American stories, but you can just keep going. And the fact is, we've even gone back to Normandy about 7 weeks ago to do another upcoming season that we're editing now, because there are so many stories, as you said, head slightly inland. So Normandy was the first one because it's that kind of catch-all, but it's also, people have heard of it, people want to know more about it, but there's also these micro stories you might not have heard. So we did that. Arnhem we did purely because it aligned. One of our presenters, Al Murray, had a book, Arnhem Black Tuesday, coming out. So he was very fresh in his research, his knowledge, his passion. He's got links to the airborne. And therefore, we were like, we should do Arnhem. We were coming up to the 80th anniversary, so it's also another reason. It all sort of aligned. So that's why we did Arnhem as our second series. And then there's always people saying, what about the Battle of the Bulge?
Yeah.
And so we have shot a Battle of the Bulge season. It was, in the Ardennes, in the snow. That's upcoming as well. But yeah, how do we choose it? It's kind of like, it's the stories that people ask for. But we started in the obvious place. We then went where Al had got his fresh research, where we were about to celebrate the 80th anniversary. Then we did the Bulge because there were a lot of requests for the Bulge. And we do listen to people who comment, who write on our socials. So, for example, we may or may not be going to Malta, can't possibly say. And we're also looking at doing things here. So there will be a Blitz series based around London. What it's like to live under this constant threat of an air raid siren going off and bombs dropping around you. We are also exploring maybe doing parts of like the SOE and the training up in Scotland, and we also started to film a series about the SBS in folding canoes, sort of Klepper folding canoes, where we actually went and trained and experienced half of the training route, where they go from Ardrossan to Oban on the west coast of Scotland. I was actually in a Klepper. I took a camera in a waterproof case. Storm Kieran had other ideas, and we ended up beaching on the Isle of Bute with a couple of members of our party injured and one of them suffering exposure, which was not great. So we will be going back to try and complete that as well. So it's all fronts, we want to bring to life unexpected stories, and then also add and enrich details of stories you have heard, but maybe not from that perspective, that angle.
And it's really interesting watching Walking the Ground or World War II HQ now, seeing the different places, because like you said, Jim and Al are so knowledgeable when they're walking around, that the knowing where the tank's coming from the trees, knowing where someone's hiding behind a corner, it's just an incredible amount of research. But where would you like to go? Because there's so many different areas. You've got the Eastern Front, you've got Italy, you've got North Africa. Where would you like to go?
I'd like to go to Burma, and there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, I've read a couple of books on it and it was really insightful. And then I listened to Alan James's We Have Ways of Making You Talk series, and that really pulled me into the sort of minutiae of that battle. And but then I've also discovered that, so my grandfather was in the Royal Engineers, and actually he worked in Luton at the Vauxhall plant on the Avery projects. So he was working on the Churchill tank. So if you don't know it, it's the one that's got a giant bunker buster fire on the front, like as Al calls it, an enormo Piat that can fire at blockhouses and stuff like that. He also worked on the Crocodile, the flamethrower, which is quite cool. But then
Cool.
yeah, it's a cool tank. And then he got sent out to Burma. So he was in charge of keeping the trucks running in the jungle and in the humidity of Burma. So there's a personal link, a reason I would like to be there in the footsteps of someone who's my family, but also the battle at large. I would like to be on the ground, experience something that is very different from sort of the Western Front as well, which we've walked already, and just to give a different flavour. I'd also like to look at some of the Pacific Islands, because some of them are sort of semi-untouched, protected sites. So to have access to those and walk those, that's sort of like a time capsule frozen in time, that would be absolutely incredible. Yeah, that would be the two places I would most like to go.
I'd watch the hell out of those series.
There's a lot of logistics when you go east, that's the only problem, whereas you can't just hop on a ferry.
I see you coming back with all these mosquito bites and everything as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got to say, as long as we keep making the stuff and people keep watching it, it's great. And we do have these adventures, you know, so as much as I go, it's great walking Normandy, the interactive stuff, so I'm big into my machines, really have always been. And the fact that we took a Spitfire up, a two-seater Spitfire, and in the next few weeks even, you will see that episode where Al and Jim go up in a two-seater Spitfire and get to take over the controls in the air. I went up in another aircraft so I could go wing to wing and get some aerial footage, and just flying wing to wing with a Spitfire. How many people get to do that as part of like their day-to-day? They don't. And when we went to do the 80th anniversary, they recreated part of 30 Corps, the column of vehicles. We actually joined it in the Grosbeak Heights and rode on a Sherman tank down to Nijmegen and then made the crossing. We crossed the Nijmegen road bridge on a Sherman, which is just an unbelievable experience.
And like seeing or knowing how happy you were doing it, and the other two seeing their faces whilst going across, it is just awesome to see everything going off in these.
Unbelievable, yeah. While we were there as well, even the unexpected stuff, like I had no idea how much Arnhem literally shuts down to celebrate, or to commemorate, not celebrate, but to commemorate the 80th. And I'm going to steal an Al quote because it's perfect. It's like, it's got a different flavour to commemoration. So over here, it's very much, you know, look what my relatives did, and which is great. Celebrating that is valid. But when you're there, it's look what someone else attempted to do for us. They came from their country to try and like liberate us from the Germans, and actually, that's really touching. And it may have got a bit dusty, it may have got a bit teary at the 80th anniversary at the Airborne Cemetery, because we found out that they assign a grave to primary school age children at the Airborne Cemetery, and they're at the Airborne School. It's been renamed.
Oh wow!
And they have to look after that grave, and they have to do as much research as possible on who is in it, and they have to bring it fresh flowers and keep it clean all year. And then at the commemoration, they stand before the member of the royal family in attendance. They raise the flowers above the head, and then they ceremoniously lay them on the grave. It's really touching, but it's such a different way of commemorating and passing that memory down to the Arnhem locals, that literally, you know, they said people came from the sky to try and liberate us, and ultimately didn't succeed, which is also another tragic element to it.
Now, I think this is a nice place to ask a final fun question for you, Mike.
Go on then.
So this is, I think, your second year at We Have Ways now.
It is my second year at We Have Ways.
What's your favourite thing about this festival?
Oh God, there's a long list. Oh God, that's a really good question. I'm going to give a non-answer answer. So,
Fine.
In the HQ tent, there is obviously the comedy-flavoured stuff like the Ensa show, and that is a really great way of coming together and laughing in a different way of remembering, right? It's not a sombre remembrance, but there are talks here about all manner of things. From we had one last year that was biological warfare with John Tregonning, which was amazing. We have people talking about the Philippines. We have people talking about Burma. We have people talking about Arnhem. We have people talking about tanks. Like, dipping in and out of the tents actually is a joy. To go into any which tent, so there's the 3 main speaker tents, and hearing something. Then the music in the evening is fun, but also walking up to where the living historians are.
It's incredible.
It's absolutely amazing. When you go to the Arsenal tent this year, which is where our talk is tomorrow, there's literally there's the paras in the woods, and they've got a jeep as if they've just landed in a horse or glider, and they've set up camp in the woods. It's brilliant, and they sort of greet you as you come in, and then up to the armour. The armour field is great. Seeing scout vehicles, tanks, armoured vehicles, anti-tank guns, all sorts, just beetling around a big field, they're being used for how they were meant to be used, and they're not just living in a museum and being polished every day, which I think is important.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree, because I think when you've got a machine like that, it needs to be used to keep it going so that everyone can learn about it.
100%. It's what they were designed. They were basic vehicles to do a basic job, and we need to see them sort of, going around that field and, making things go bang when they fire a blank. Also, the final thing, if you've never been, is the sort of ceremonial ending of every day with the firing of...
It's just awesome.
It's amazing, isn't it? There's the big 88, and they put a searchlight into the sky, and they fire the big 88 to sort of mark the end of each day, which is amazing.
It's one of the coolest things that happen in any evening. Well, Mike, how can people go away and watch World War II HQ if they haven't already?
If they haven't already,
yeah.
And why haven't you? If you go onto YouTube, WW2 Headquarters, subscribe, because it helps our numbers. It helps our numbers with YouTube, so it helps YouTube promote us to new people and spread the word of WW2 Headquarters. And on there, you can see all of our videos. They're ranked by playlist or a series, and just dig in, enjoy, watch on your TV, watch on a tablet. There's another place. If you go to www.ww2headquarters.com, actually that's a central place now where you can see all of our videos. You can also see all of the podcasts. You can search by which part of the war you're interested in. So if you type in Omaha, every video and podcast that mentions Omaha pops up, and it makes it really easy to centralise everything. And there's also some really cool merch, and they sell tickets for this event there, so it's a great central place for all your World War II needs. Again, quoting Al.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Mike.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Keep your heads down, keep your heads down. Pipe down, I'm on the radio.
The We Have Ways Festival Special Series, here on History of Jackson.